Yeah, they're here.
Business cards are not in.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is 6 o'clock. Time to begin our December 5th meeting. We'll call ourselves to order at this time. Item 1, I have an agenda. I'd like to have a moment of silence for Master Police Officer Paul Perrette, please. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to make an announcement. From time to time, I have the privilege of recognizing various people. Today, I got a call for one of our own to be recognized, and I'd like to do that at this time. I received a telephone call. It advised me that Deborah Duncan, Mayor Pro Tem, has passed the bar exam after she retired as Chief of Police. She went to school for 3.5 years at law school, and I had a call today that she had passed the bar exam. So, Deborah, I want to say to you, congratulations. That's a great job. Deborah, I could have probably been an attorney if I'd went 4 years, but I didn't do that. I don't know if I could even got in, but that's a great honor, and we certainly look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I guess you were going to keep that a secret. If I hadn't got that call, would we ever know? But anyway, congratulations again. Second item we have is annexation of 75-point consent agenda. Yes, we do. You got me all confused. Consent agenda at this time, Mr. Larry. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The consent agenda is used to consider items that are non-controversial and routine. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a council member or citizen with the consent of council. The consent agenda contains the following items. Item number 2 under consent is for the purpose of calling for a public hearing on October 3rd for an annexation request by Charles Braswell involving 75.96 acres located at the intersection of U.S. Highway 601 and White Store Road, and to direct the clerk to investigate the applicant's petition. Item 3 is for the purpose of awarding the 2017-2018 asphalt paving contract to Lynch's River Contracting in the amount of $1,272,764.50. Item 4 is for the purpose of calling for 3 public hearings to be held on October 3rd. The first hearing is to consider a zoning map amendment requesting rezoning of the property located at the intersection of U.S. Highway 601 and White Store Road from R20 to Conditional District Oakton. The second hearing is to consider a zoning map amendment request to rezone property located at 402 East Patton Avenue from General Business to Conditional District 402 East Patton Avenue. The third hearing is to consider text amendment to 156.113 of the Unified Development Ordinance titled Accessory Uses. Item 5 under consent involves minutes and reports, which are lettered 5A through I. 5A involves disbursements, and there were 3 sets of disbursements by the governing body this period. First of which was Councilmember Gary Anderson dispersed $400 to New Life Community Temple of Faith. Councilmember Saluda Anthony made 3 disbursements, which included the Monroe Deliverance Center in the amount of $200, the Christian Family Home in the amount of $400, and the Union County Community Shelter in the amount of $200. And third, Councilmember Lynn Keziah dispersed $2,200 to the Union County Playmakers. Item 5B is to provide the Metropolitan Transportation Plan for 2045 and the revised draft State Transportation Improvement Program for 2018 through 2027, which is provided for information only and no action is required by City Council. There are 6 sets of minutes lettered 5C through H. 5I is a summary of contracts awarded, change orders approved, and city manager settlement of claims. And there were 38 contracts for the period totaling $290,000 in change, and there were no claims settled for this period. Item 6 under consent is for the purpose of approving an asset management agreement and other related agreements to allow the Center Point Energy, Inc. to manage the city's natural gas transcontinental pipeline capacity contracts and to arrange for the delivery of natural gas to the city. Item 7 is for the purpose of approving the tax releases for the month of July 2017, amount of $93.56. And members, Mayor, members of the City Council, this concludes my synopsis of the items placed on the consent agenda for your consideration.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That will pass. Okay, now we're in the regular agenda. Item 89 is, item 8 is annexation of 17.6 acres located at MLK Junior Boulevard and Weddington Road. And we also, this is for, I need to read this now.
May as well go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Then a zoning map request, property located at MLK Junior Boulevard, Weddington Road. We're going to do these at the same time, but we'll vote on them separately. But I'd like to read this first. Item 8, annexation 17.6 acres located at intersection MLK Junior Boulevard and Weddington Road. A dual public hearing will be held to consider this request. Item number 9, zoning map amendment request to rezone property located at the intersection of MLK Junior Boulevard and Weddington Road from residential single to request single family to conditional district on MLK and Weddington Road. Action on the two requests will be taken separately. I hereby open the duly advertised continued public hearing. Senior Planner Doug Prittwood will hear from you, sir.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, tonight I'm presenting zone map amendment request requested by Aston Properties for the property located at northeastern corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Wellington Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from R20 single family residential to conditional district NEQ, MLK, and Weddington in order to develop the 17.6 acres at the intersection into a shopping center with 5 out parcels, total of 99,500 square feet of retail/service space. The shopping center will consist of a 35,000 square foot grocery anchor with 2 8,000 square foot retail spaces, totaling 51,000 square feet, and the remaining 48,500 square feet will be made up of the out parcels. The subject property, the entire parcel is outlined in yellow, but the crosshatch area is the 17.6 acres they're requesting to annex and to rezone. The subject property, as well as all the surrounding properties, are zoned R20 single family residential. This is the site plan of the property. Just to go over a few things. The proposed uses the applicant is requesting is all uses allowed within the GB zoning district. Additionally, the applicant is requesting the following: motor vehicle repair and maintenance, not including substantial body work, sales with installation of motor vehicle parts or accessories, tires and mufflers, open air markets, farm and craft markets, produce markets, and commercial greenhouses operations with on-premise sales. The setbacks along Martin Luther King are 50 foot required by the ordinance, 10 foot required along Wellington Road, just as required by the ordinance. There will be a sidewalk along the entire road frontage of MLK and Wellington Road. The applicant is requesting to install a sidewalk as the project is developed. The first area that will be developed will be, I'll call it the grocery parcel, and they will propose to put the sidewalk in front of this location here. As the other out parcels are developed, they will then put the sidewalk in at those various locations as they're developed. Parking, the grocery anchor right now is proposing 1 space for 214 square feet of gross floor area. They have a total of 238 parking spaces. And likewise, for as the out parcels are developed, A, B, C, D, and E, those parking and landscape requirements will be installed at the time they're developed. As far as transportation goes, there will be 2 access points off of Wellington Road. There'll be one right here, which will be full movement, and the applicant will be installing a left turn lane as well as a right deceleration lane into the site. So when you go to leave the site, you have the ability to either turn left to go toward the stoplight or turn right back right to come back toward Monroe. The access point, there'll be access point here to be installed at a later time between out parcels A and B. This will be a right in, right out access, which means you can only turn right into the project and you can only turn right to leave the project. There will be 2 access points along MLK. The one at this location, which is kind of across from UA, will be a full movement access with a stoplight, so you'll be able to turn left to leave the project as well as turn right to go back toward the railroad tracks or Old Charlotte Highway. And at this location right here, there'll be a protected leftover, which means you can turn left to get into the site, but when you go to the lead site, you can only turn right, and you can also turn right to access to the site from that location.
Doug, while you're there, just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
The distance between MLK, right there where you are, and the entrance on Weddington Road is?
I don't know, from my applicant guys.
It's just a curiosity, really. The second one is a little issue that I thought might be created at a later date, but they seemed somewhat close. Right.
Well, and one reason, the right in and right out here between out parcel A and B, it is close to the intersection, so DOT would not allow them to have a full movement, so you can only turn right to get in and you can only turn right to get out of it. So at that point in time, you're not really backing up traffic on Wellington Road because they would install a deceleration lane at this location so people can get off the main travel lane to be able to turn into the site. And if there's any stacking to get out of it, it's going to be stacking up internally to the project itself. The landscape plan, as required for any project, they're required to do a streetscape buffer along the adjacent to the right of way, which is a mixture of trees and shrubs. So they'll have that along MLK and Wellington Road. And then also they'll have internal landscaping for parking lots with trees and shrubs there too. And just like the parking and the sidewalk, obviously there's no point as far as doing the landscaping now if they got to be further developed. So initially, they will do the landscape as the project is developed. So if the grocery store is developed first, they'll do this landscaping all associated with this project here. And as these future out parcels are developed, they will install that landscaping at that particular time. The one thing as far as along this property line there that borders the Sherwood Forest, and this is other residential zone property up here, the ordinance requires a 20-foot landscape buffer be installed by the applicant since they are developing commercial property and they are required to provide a buffer between their property and the residential property. They did provide this, and additionally they did increase the buffer because from this location to this location is the extent of the Sherwood Forest properties within there. They've agreed to increase that 20-foot buffer to 40-foot buffer and will install a solid opaque fence on the commercial side of the project. So when the people from Sherwood Forest look at the project, they'll see trees and shrubs, and then there'll be a fence on the other side of that, and then you have the shopping center itself. As far as solid waste goes, they propose dumpsters at this location here and at the location here, and just like as these out parcels are developed, they'll provide their own dumpsters for their sites as they're developed. Stormwater, the project is required to provide stormwater as required by the engineering department. Stormwater location will be up here, and down the street for water quality and water quantity to meet the city's stormwater management requirements that would be reviewed at the time of submittal. Elevations of the building. The building along the front will be a mixture of brick and stone. Stones at the bottom, and the brick from the bottom portion to the top. The right side elevation will be a mixture of EIFS with EIFS faux windows at these locations here, and then with brick pilasters to help access that. The left side elevation will be similar with the ephes and ephes faux windows with the brick pilasters. And the rear elevation will be painted CMU block. And that's their storage and cooling areas and loading docks at this location. And that's just the back of the dumpsters there, where there'll be a brick enclosure as well. And this is kind of a front and side view there of the project. This project went to the plan board initially in June and was tabled by the plan board due to some neighbor concerns that brought up at the meeting. The plan board did suggest that the applicant meet with the neighborhood. The applicant did initially mail out a notification to neighbors informing them what they were doing, but based on the concerns that were brought up at the plan board did request, they did table the item, request the applicant hold a neighborhood meeting. The applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting, and as a result of the meeting, the applicant made the following changes. They increased the buffer along the Sherwood Forest properties from 20 feet to 40 feet. They proposed to install a solid opaque fence constructed along Sherwood Forest properties. They enhanced the exterior building materials of the building facade. They limited the uses on out parcel C, which is out parcel C at this location right here, which is the closest out parcel to the Sherwood Forest residence. They limited this to be no automotive whatsoever. And if there was a restaurant to go in this location, if they had any type of outside dining or outside sitting, they would put that either on the opposite side of that, so it would not have an impact on the residents that lived at this location right here, closest to the project. And as far as the this project was routed with it, like any other project, for comments from the various departments for site plan review comments, as well as impact on the cost of services and the consensus of the departments that was routed to the development, that this annexation will not create any immediate impact on the operating budget. The project is not consistent with the vision for the long-range land use plan that's currently in place, but staff does believe it's a reasonable use being located at as a major intersection, and based on upon improvements that's being proposed for the site. The plan board did recommend approval, and as the mayor stated at the beginning of the project, the actions for council considered tonight are: 1, a motion to approve or to deny the annexation request with the ordinance, and 2, if the annexation is approved, a motion to approve the rezone with the resolution of land development compliance that's provided to you in your packet. I'll be glad to answer any questions tonight, and the applicant's here also to address your questions too. Yes, sir.
The first paragraph you read again, those were the exceptions to things that would not be allowed there?
No, things they wanted to include there, and I'll go over that one more time. Applicants requesting all uses within GB zone district. Additionally, applicants requesting the following: motor vehicle repair and maintenance, not include substantial body work. And the explanation, and staff questioned this on this, they're wanting to do something like a Goodyear or a Firestone place where they sell tires and do oil changes and whatnot. Also, they want sales with installation of motor vehicle parts or accessories. And my explanation of this was kind of like either an AutoZone or a Advanced Auto, some form of fashion like that. And then open air markets to include farm or craft markets, produce markets, and or commercial greenhouses with on-premise sales. So these would be uses they would want in addition to what's allowed in GB. Yes, sir.
And they met and exceeded all the concerns of residents of Sherwood Forest.
They did, and some of these residents are here tonight too. But at the second plan board meeting we went to, the residents seemed somewhat satisfied with the outcome of the meeting. But I'll let them speak to that.
Any questions for Mr. Brett? Hearing none, thank you, Doug.
No.
As I said, this is a rezone and for annexation of 17.6. At this time, I have some people who have signed up, and I'll take them in the way they were signed. The first was Mr. Smith. At this time, if you would like to come and speak. I'm sorry?
No, I don't need to speak.
Okay. Mr. Gibson?
Yes, sir.
you'd like to speak?
Yes, sir.
If you will, give your name and address for a clerk, so we'll have it in the record, sir.
Yes, sir. Eric Gibson, Ashton Properties, 610 East Moorhead Street, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202. Thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to present to you tonight. Doug did a great job going over our project, so I'll try and fly through the presentation. Please stop me at any point in time with any questions and answers as we go. Introduce the team real quick, and they're also available for any questions as we go as well. Terry Williams with Withrose, property owner, also owns the adjacent property where the charter school is. Brian Smith, the reason he declined is he wanted me to talk. He's the engineer with Ashton Properties. Mark Rufty with Food Lion, and John Weller is the architect for the project. So again, I'll fly through this. Please stop me at any point in time, and we can clarify or answer any questions. Again, the property is located at 84 Weddington Road in MLK. As Doug indicated, it's a 28-acre property, roughly, that we are asking to annex and rezone, which is indicated here with the site, 17.5 plus or minus acres of that property to be rezoned for commercial use. As indicated, our site plan is a phased project. It includes starting with a 35,000 square foot Food Lion that will be a standalone project until users are identified and we add out parcels and small shops to the project. As you can see, we've indicated the 3 access points that will be built immediately. The far east onto Weddington Road, where we'll have full movement. The right in, right out with the left over just above on MLK, and then the full signalized intersection at the northern point of the site. And just to note that we worked with the charter school. That road on the opposite side of our site is the one of the new access points for the charter school, and we worked with them and their engineering to make sure that those roads did align and presented a nice intersection for both uses. Landscaping plan, as Doug mentioned and indicated, we will be landscaping to what is required for planning, and we'll work with planning and staff to make sure that all the needs are met. And it will be phased landscaping along as we develop the project. So the 5.5 acres that we'll be developing for the Food Line will be landscaped, and then as the out parcels are developed, they will be landscaped accordingly. And also, as Doug mentioned, the landscaping on the rear of the property, we did increase it from a 20 to a 40-foot buffer after meeting with Sherwood Forest community, along with adding the vinyl siding fence that we have agreed to put in. This is a rendering of the first time we came through planning board, which was tabled. This is a rendering after our meeting with planning board, additional meetings with staff and with the community to make the enhancements that were asked of us. This was our side elevation to our first submittal for planning, and after those meetings and concerns were addressed, this is our final product, where we have again gone away from the CMU, created EFIS accent panels along with the brick columns, and then painted the EFIS to match the brick to the front of the building. Again, side view of the first one and final product improvements. And then it's the rear of our building, painted CMU to match the brick. That's another side shot that you guys have seen. Development standards. There's 17 acres, 70.6 acres. We are looking at retail development. 99,500 square feet is what We have agreed to, we have an agreement in place with DOT. That's why those access points are where they are on the site. Those were pre-agreed to by DOT, so we could kind of customize and make the site plan work off of where those access points were. In agreement with DOT, that agreement has a contingency that we will not build more than 100,000 square feet to keep those access points in place of commercial. Development standards, as Doug mentioned, the 50, the 10, and the 10 setbacks. Parking is above requirements. It is a Monroe ETJ, zoned R20 now, that we'll be asking to go to is GBC, general business condition. Again, a description of the project. Proposed uses, be looking to obviously everything within the GB zoning. We would also like to add the motor vehicle repair and maintenance. Again, that is to allow for a Goodyear or a Firestone. It would be not where you're doing major mechanical work. Work would be done inside the building, cars contained inside the building, inside the bays. In and out type stuff. You're not coming there to get your engines overhauled or things of that nature. That goes in line with the sale of the tires and mufflers for the installation of motor vehicles, along with auto zones, advanced auto parts that may be interested in the property as well. Open air markets, we did scrape flea markets from the definition in your ordinance, but we did want to keep the farm and craft markets, produce markets, as those have become very popular over the last few years, and thought it would be a nice character to have to the property. Commercial greenhouses, the thought there is, example would be Pike's down in Valentine, where's the Pike's greenhouse where you go to buy your Japanese maples and, annuals, perennials. We did agree to the following restrictions. The out parcel C, which is the one closest to Sherwood Forest, we would not have the auto on that out parcel, and we'd also, if a restaurant did land there, we would make sure that the patio, for noise purposes, is on the opposite side from where the community is. Architectural standards. We went with the ordinances and bumped it up some. If there's any questions about the materials or architecture, just let me know. The fence, I'll give you an example of the fence, if I can. Does the mouse work on here, Doug? There it goes, I got it. So that is a sample of the fence we're proposing. It is a vinyl fence that's made out of EcoStone, so it's produced to look just like a stone slate fence, but it is a vinyl fencing, which I think mixed in with the additional
How tall is it?
6 foot. Again, we'll work with Doug and staff on landscaping to make sure we meet all requirements there. Lighting, this was a question from planning. We will be using full cutoff lighting, which means light will not be going up in the sky, going into the community. It will be controlled and shielded from leaving the property. Access connectivity, as I mentioned earlier, we have the identified access points that were already approved by DOT that we'll be utilizing for this project, as was indicated on the site plan. Again, just speaks to us agreeing to abide by ordinances with buildings. As the future phases come, they will all be developed to the standards of what we're approving here today. And questions for me or for anyone on the team?
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Sure, thank you.
I have also signed up Mark.
It's Mark Ruffey with Food Line. I'm just here for questions. I don't mean to.
All right. How about Mr. Terry Williams?
Yeah, Terry Williams with the landowner, I'm available if there's any questions.
Would you like to come to speak? Or give it?
No, I don't have anything.
Oh, okay. All right, anyone else who would like to come and speak in favor of the 17.6 located intersection of Boulevard for the annexation? Anyone who'd like to speak in favor? Anyone, come right on, sir, if you will. Sir, if you give us a name and address for the record, appreciate it, sir.
Joe Moore, 2205 Sherwood Forest Lane, Monroe. I represent the Sherwood Forest community, which is adjacent to the proposed Food Line Shopping Center. We have attended planning board meetings and had a meeting with the developers to discuss concerns which our community had about the effects of the construction might have on our Sherwood Forest community. The developers have addressed our concerns in a positive manner, and we appreciate the cooperation we have had from them. We support the construction of the project and expect the developers to be good neighbors to our community and to follow through with the agreements they have made with Sherwood Forest community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Hearing none, is anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? Okay, is anyone who would like to speak on the rezoning of this property? Anyone who'd like to speak in favor? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and take action on item 8 first and item 9.
Mayor, if on item 8, before you get to any further action, the council actually has to make a finding as to whether or not the petition meets the requirements of General Statute Section 168-31.
Okay.
I so move that.
I have a motion, have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, that's fine. All right, on item
I
8,
just want to make sure for purposes of the record, I didn't hear everyone on council, so if maybe by a show of hands, you get the yeas and nays.
all in favor, please show your hand.
Are
Raise
you
your hand.
stipulating that that it meets the statute? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The
Everybody,
petition, this is not, you're approving the annexation. It's a quirk of state law that requires you to find that the petition meets the requirements before you take any action on whether or not to annex.
And you're saying that the petition does meet the requirements?
Yes, ma'am.
all in favor,
you-
please raise your hand. That's everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right, now, we'll go back to 8 on 17.6 acres.
Okay, I move that we pass an annexation of 17.6 acres at the intersection of MLK and Weatherton Road.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any other?
Mayor, I would just ask that if the motion could be amended to just reflect that you're approving the ordinance approving the ordinance as part of that.
So amended.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a motion.
The second, and you just have to get the seconder to agree to that as well.
Second.
Outstanding.
Oh, thank you so much, Deborah.
That's what happens when you get lawyers, you pay them a lot of money and they do that.
You don't want to get me on that. Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All right, item 9.
Hold on, Mayor, so the clerk and I have a count because of the numbers. Was that unanimous?
Yes.
It was.
Thank you.
Yes.
We
All
can't
right.
hear
People on that
everyone.
side of raise your hand that we wouldn't have any problem.
All right,
Thank you, Mayor.
item 9, rezoning. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
I have a motion, right?
Second.
Have a second.
Actually,
All
you
in
need-
favor?
Actually,
whoa,
what is it I have to
hold
do
it.
now?
Resolution on the conformity. You
Okay,
need to
I
approve
make
the
a motion on the resolution of the conforming and what?
Just make sure.
You need to start writing this down.
That's right, I need to start.
I don't have all this. book
This is the
written down,
resolution
that's why I
that-
don't know that.
What you need to do is approve the resolution of land development compliance.
Approve a resolution of land development compliance.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. That's everybody. Okay.
And
Now,
then you go to the zoning map amendment, so then the second thing would be approve
And
the
the
rezoning.
rezoning
Rezoning.
map amendment.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, everybody raise your hand. All in favor? Any opposed? That's everybody.
We good?
What?
You're good.
We good?
Man, we got through that.
Good Lord, gentlemen, y'all didn't know we were in Washington DC.
I would just like to let you people know with the developer that we feel the same way that Mr. Moore does back here in his last sentence. We expect you to live up to what you say you're gonna do and be good neighbors to him and the rest of the community, and we're glad to have you with us.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Monroe.
Glad to have you.
Okay. Item 10, use of community development block grant funds from the North Carolina Department of Commerce. Public hearing. Brian?
I'm up. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm here to present the Community Development Block Grant funds that we are considering. The U.S. Housing, Urban Development, HUD, and Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program, has authorized the making of grants to aid eligible units of government in funding the cost of downtown redevelopment projects, aiding in the removal of slum and blight. And the North Carolina Department of Commerce Main Street Program Rural Economic Development Division has the authority to administer the state grant monies received from HUD. CDBG eligible activities are limited to historic preservation, remediation of environmentally contaminated properties, building rehabilitation activities, including code corrections. All activities must be in accordance with Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Eligible activities include upgrade the electrical and plumbing infrastructure, upgrade HVAC systems, install Wi-Fi in downtown buildings, repair and replace roofs, repair and replace windows, repair and replace walls, floors, and ceilings. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, ADA compliance, rodent and pest elimination systems, remediation of contaminated buildings, and commercial or mixed-use building facade improvements. The City of Monroe has need for and intends to use the Downtown Redevelopment Fund grant in the amount of $400,000 for downtown redevelopment activities. The funds will be used to renovate the Preston Building, locally known as the Rock Building, which is located at 115 South Main Street in downtown Monroe. The project is eligible for CDBG DRF funding. We have Joe Beeson and Charlie Griffin here tonight, the owner and developers. We also have James Luster from COG here. If you have any questions of him, he's helping us apply and administer the grant. Project activities will include, but are not limited to, upfit of all interior surfaces, upgraded electrical, plumbing, and mechanical windows and roofing as prescribed in the grant requirements. The North Carolina Department of Commerce Division of Community Investment and Assistance require that all compliance documentation for the City of Monroe CDBG program be periodically updated and readopted by City Council. I'm going to try to make this easy for everyone. Staff requests that you recommend and council take action on the following. 1, approve the use of community development block grant funds from the North Carolina Department of Commerce and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for infrastructure improvements or a building reuse project. 2, adopt a resolution R 2017-53 authorizing the filing of the application with the state of North Carolina for a grant to aid in the renovation of the building located at 115 South Main Street. 3, approve the Equal Opportunity Plan. This is City Policy 09, PL 09. Approve the Residential Anti-Displacement Relocation Plan, City Policy PL 12. Approve the Section 3 Plan, City Policy PL 13. Adopt a Resolution R 2017-51, approving the Procurement Plan, City Policy PL 10. Approve the Citizens Participation Plan, City Policy PL 11. Approve the Language Access Plan, City Policy PL 14. Approve the Fair Housing Plan, City Policy PL 15. And authorize the city manager to execute any and all documents with regard to the use of CDBG funds from North Carolina Department of Commerce and HUD. Thank you.
Wow.
Appreciate that.
Can I repeat you?
I didn't get all of that. Could you? I didn't get all of that, Brian.
The easy part is when you want to do it, I would just say, you move approval of items 1 through 10.
I move,
Any questions, Brian?
Any questions, me, the developer?
Hearing none, okay? This is a public hearing. Is anyone here who'd like to speak in favor? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and take action.
Move we approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's approved. Item 11 and 12. Item 11 is annexation of 51.5 acres of land located southwest of Unionville Indian Trail Road between Poplin Road and Ridge Road. Item 12 is a zoning map amendment request to rezone the same property. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a hearing, as like we did on the last one. At this time, annexation 51.5 acres. At this time, we recognize you, Gary.
Good evening, I'm Carrie Hutchins with the Planning Department. Tonight I'm here presenting an annexation petition and a zoning map amendment request for the property located south of West Unionville Indian Trail Road. The applicant is requesting a conditional district rezoning in order to develop 126 single-family lots. To orient you to the site, it's highlighted in blue. South of West Unionville Indian Trail Road, and then this is the Glendalough subdivision. The subject property is currently 51.5 acres, and the applicant is proposing to develop 126 lots that are a minimum of 6,820 square feet with an average lot size of 9,987 square feet. The adjoining zoning is RA 40, which is the county and Unionville's residential zoning, and then conditional district Glendalough. Again, this red color is Glendalough. This green, yellow color is Unionville's jurisdiction, and then this brown is the county's RA 40. The applicant is requesting the conditional district in order to develop 126 single-family lots and will provide 15 acres of open space, and the density will be 2.4 units per acre. The minimum lot size is 6,820 square feet. There are 3 lot widths, but the A lots range from 15,274 square feet to 27,142 square feet. And these are the A lots here in the center of the plan. The B lots range from roughly 8,625 square feet to 17,082 square feet. And the B lots are this orange color located to the north of the site. And then the C lots range from 6,820 square feet to 15,634 square feet, and they are found at the perimeter and to the south of the site. Each lot will provide paved driveways that will accommodate at least 4 vehicles, and each lot will also have 2 front yard trees, and street trees will also be provided. A sidewalk is also being proposed throughout the subdivision. And this is another site plan with a little bit more of the details with the landscaping and the heritage trees that will be preserved on the site as well. The developer is proposing homes with a minimum size of 1,600 square feet. The proposed exterior building materials will include fiber cement, stone, stucco, and/or brick. Each dwelling will also have a minimum of a 2-car attached garage with hardware that will mimic the carriage-style garage door. And these are some of the elevations that the applicant has submitted. As far as school district goes, the developer did meet with Don Ogram on August 23rd, 2017 regarding this development, and the school district is the Porter School District, so Porter Elementary, Middle, and High School. Mr. Agram noted in the meeting that they had on August 23rd that the school capacities, along with the enrollment forecast for the next 10 years, were available on the school's website for review. And based on that information, on the school's website, none of the 3 schools for this development are at capacity, nor are the schools projected to reach capacity in the next 10 years.
Did you say none of those?
Correct. Okay. Let's see, I printed off their website. I can show you real quick. This is what is from their website, and it's kind of hard to see, but Porter Ridge Elementary, their capacity is 688, and by year 2026 and 2027 school year, the projected enrollment is 528. And this is from their website, and I think the applicant probably be providing a little bit more detail about that meeting that he had with Don Agram. The development will include a left turn lane on West Unionville Indian Trail Road at one of the entrances, and the second entrance will be a right-in, right-out only intersection. The Department of Transportation is not requiring a traffic impact analysis because the proposed subdivision does not exceed 300 lots. And just try to get a little closer look. This entrance will be a right-in, right-out only with a concrete barrier in the road to prevent the left turn. And then the second entrance will have the left turn lane into the subdivision. As far as neighborhood notification, the applicant did send a notification letter to the property owners within 150 feet of the subject property back in June. Staff received 1 inquiry and they just requested a site plan. Additionally, a rezoning notification sign was posted 10 days prior to this public hearing, and a rezoning notification was sent to the adjacent property owners from the city 10 days prior to the public hearing. Recommendation, the annexation and the rezoning application was routed to the various departments involved with development, and the consensus of the departments is that the annexation will not create an immediate impact on the operating budget. The planning board did recommend approval of the annexation and the zoning map for the property located off of West Unionville Indian Trail Road, from the RA20 residential low density to conditional district Poplar Grove, as well as adoption of the resolution of land development compliance and the ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the city of Monroe. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes.
You never, is the product that's gonna be used vinyl or hardy board?
It'll be the fiber cement, which is the hardy board.
Hardy board?
No vinyls being proposed.
Question. What's the price range of the houses in phase 1, 2, and 3?
I will defer that to the applicant.
But this is all part of the Glendalough subdivision?
It won't be Glendalough, it'll be a separate subdivision called Poplar Grove, but it was developed and is proposed to be more or less an extension of Glendalough, and the applicant can definitely go into that a little bit more further.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, ma'am. For the record, I will read this item. Level annexation of 51.5 acres located south of West Unionville Indian Trail Road and in between Poplar Road and Ridge Road. A dual public hearing will be held to consider this request. Item number 12, zoning map amendment request to rezone property located south of Unionville Indian Trail Road and in between Poplar Road and Ridge Road from R40 to conditional district called Poplar Grove. Action on the 2 requests will be taken separately. I hereby open the duly advertised public hearing. Okay, anyone here who would like to speak? I have 2 folks signed up here. and I'll take them as a sign. Mr. John Ross, I've got you signed up to speak, sir. Yes, sir. If you will give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is John Ross with Eagle Engineering, 2013A Van Buren Avenue in Indian Trail, North Carolina. Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council, first of all, I would like to express our gratitude for the opportunity to be heard this evening for this annexation and this rezoning petition. Also here with me this evening is Mr. Chad Lloyd with MI Homes, representing the builder. I'm here this evening representing the petitioner for the rezoning. Ms. Miller, thank you for your efforts, and Mr. Britt for your review and your summary presentation this evening. I want to run through just a few slides, and at the risk of being a little bit repetitive, I think it's important information, but do feel free at any point if there's a question, I would be glad to respond to that. Mr. Lloyd is here to respond to specific questions about the homes. Thank you for that. He'll be up in just a few moments. So, project location, it is a satellite annexation. The property is adjacent to the existing Glendalough community and just north of the Stratford community currently under construction. This is an aerial view. It's about 51 acres. The yellow outline represents the overall site. You can know from this picture that the site was timbered a few years ago, but there are some fairly, and we'll be very careful not to put this at anybody's eyes here, a couple significant areas of trees. We have surveyed those areas for locating all of the heritage trees that are on the site. The site does front Unionville Indian Trail Road to the north, Popland Road to the west, and you can barely see it on here, but you'll see it on the next slide. There is an existing sanitary sewer outfall under construction just to the east of the site that will be serving the Stratford community. In the development of the concept plan for this site, we utilized the plan review comments that we received from our pre-submittal meeting with the town staff, as well as comments that we received during the TRC. And we developed the site plan framework that you see here. Our goal and our intent was not to be part of the Glendalough community, but rather to replicate, to be good neighbors, but to replicate many of the conditions that they had employed in their community. So like they have, this community has exactly 3 sizes of single-family lots. They are all single-family lots. We did use the very same minimum lot sizes, but we exceeded with all of the perimeter. Our smallest lots are 62 feet wide. Theirs were 60s. We do also have a mix of 75s and 90s as well, but we did incorporate, much like they did, all of the setbacks. We have larger rear yard setbacks where we abut something that's not internal to the site. So we used all of that in developing our framework. We met with DOT during the plan review process, and we, I'm sorry, getting off track here just a moment. In the concept plan process, we met on site with DOT representatives. We looked at alternatives, the best locations for our drive connections, and DOT helped us identify these 2 locations. As Carrie pointed out, they're both on Unionville Indian Trail Road. The western location would be limited to a right-in, right-out drive. That drive is about 800 feet from the existing intersection of Popland and Unionville Indian Trail Road. DOT desires 600 feet of separation. We couldn't quite make 600 feet with the best locations on the site, so that's why we limited our western entrance to a right-in, right-out, and then this is our main full-motion intersection. We did inquire at that time of DOT, would a traffic impact analysis be warranted or required? They said no, we don't even approach the threshold required for a traffic impact analysis, but they did give us their requirements would be a 100-foot left turn lane with turn lanes and tapers and storage at our main intersection, and then they dictated that that would indeed be the right-in, excuse me, the right-in, right-out configuration. So we put all of that together. Again, we located all of the heritage trees on site, and that's what's represented here. As Carrie pointed out, we meet the 2 trees per lot. We meet all the street tree requirements. In addition, we're proposing a fairly dense landscape berm along the frontage of Unionville Indian Trail Road. We put all of those pieces together and created what is our technical data sheet. That's in the package that's been reviewed by planning staff, by the TRC. The gray areas that you see hatched here are water quality features. That's driven by the topography of the site. Some will be, the largers will be wet ponds. The others, smallers, will probably be dry ponds. What this did give us the opportunity to do, and it shows much better on our color rendering, is the ability to protect all the heritage trees and develop a number of pocket parks throughout the site. Parks that will be used for both passive and active recreation. We have trails that are interconnecting with all of those. The second sheet of our technical data are the street cross sections where we are committing to standard City of Monroe cross section streets, and then all of the site development notes came directly from the technical review committee meeting. So it outlines the lot sizes, it outlines the commitment for 2-car garages, 4 parking spaces on each paved driveway, meeting all the street trees, heritage trees, and tree save areas. So as I noted before, a lot of trails working throughout, pocket parks throughout. We gave up some of the density, but the overall site does provide 29% of open space when 12.5% is, I don't want to misspeak, 29% open space when 12.5% is all that is required. So we greatly exceed the open space requirement for the site. So Louis, while he's coming forward, I'm going to speak to this in just a moment. This is the actual chart. I don't know that you're able to see from what was presented before. I've got just a couple copies. These are the charts for the public school enrollment forms, and I will elaborate on that again in a little more detail in just a moment.
Thank you very much and good evening. My name is Chad Lloyd with MI Homes. My address is 3242 Tatting Road in Matthews, 28105. Very excited about the possibilities of the projects here with everything that the developer is putting into it with the trails and the saving the trees and the pocket parks. We anticipate, these are elevations of some of the homes that we would anticipate to go into the project. Part of our Carolina and Park series, currently building those homes in submarkets like Fort Mill, Mooresville, Belmont, and Southwest Charlotte, and they're all doing very well. It's a mix of traditional 2-story product as well as the master home main level product. So it's a great mix for a variety of customer types coming into the neighborhood. The average square footage is just over 2,300 square feet, with some that are a little lower than 2,000 square feet, some above 3,000 square feet. So it's a good wide variety of product. As far as pricing, we would anticipate that the base pricing would be roughly around $250 is what we would think. That's base pricing with, by the time folks get through options, we would anticipate that be in the high 200s, possibly getting into the 3s. Of course, all that depends on the market. All the homes are Energy Star 100% certified. The company offers a better than industry 15-year transferable structural warranties, so we stand behind the product. Been in Charlotte market for more than 30 years. The company is publicly traded and has the resources to do the project right. So as he said, these will be hardy plank homes with the Carriage style doors. They've done very well, and we're excited to be in the Monroe market. So happy to answer any questions on the product.
Any question, Mr. Ross? Hearing none, thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Mr.
That was Mr. Lloyd. I'm Mr. Ross, and still any questions I'll be glad to answer as well. What we've done, I have just cut the 3 lines that are highlighted for this. These are all within the Porter Ridge School Districts. So out of the enrollment forecast form that you have there, again, right off the website from the county, shows the elementary, middle, and high school capacities. Now, the school has gotten away as of August 1st of this year, which was after the original staff report was written. The school has gotten away from the definition of watch schools and cap schools. What they meant in capacity is not, or cap was not an abbreviation for capacity. Let me clarify that. Previously, if a school reached its cap, the next child into that school would be diverted to the closest school that did have availability. In this case, all of these projections for capacity are post-bond from last year. So the bonds were passed. Porter Ridge Middle School has 12 classrooms to be constructed. Porter Ridge High School has 4 to be constructed. And the capacity noted on the left-hand side of this chart takes those into consideration. The biggest thing that we found out from Mr. Ogram, their consultant, their demographers now use a system that takes into account a projection, that takes into a forecast system, whereas before they had a projection analysis. So in previous years, they would take school enrollment year over year and project that line straight to identify what the next year might be like. In their current projection, I'm sorry, in their current in their current enrollment forecast, which is what is represented here, they take into account things like bypass construction, interest rates, unemployment, growth patterns. Much more data goes into these forecasts, so it's a much more accurate. It's actually guaranteed by the demographer to be plus or minus 3%. So with that, the school has these outlines. School population is actually diminishing over the next 10 years, and Porter Ridge schools will be under their available capacity for the next 10 years. So, pardon my wordiness, that's the best I can do to quickly summarize those notes. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions of Mr. Ross? Hearing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone here who would like to speak in favor? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition?
It's a question that doesn't have any bearing on it, just information. Will this be a homeowner association community?
Yes, ma'am, it will.
Okay, anyone who'd like to speak in favor or against the rezone of the property? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and take action.
I move we grant the request.
Actually, Mayor, you need, this is, again, because it's an annexation, first thing you'll need is the council needs to find the petition for annexation meets requirements of General Statute Section 168-31.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that will pass. Okay. Now, on item 11, 51.5 acres to be.
I move for the
That's on
annexation.
Union Trail Road, right, 51.5 acres. This is annexation, item 11.
I move to approve the annexation 51.5 acres at south of West Unionville Indian Trail Road between Poplar Road and Ridge Road.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, that will pass. All right. Item 12, zoning map amendment, request to rezone the same property. Do I have a motion?
Actually, Mayor, you'll need, the
Go
first
ahead.
thing you'll need will be a motion to approve the resolution regarding land, regarding plan compliance.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
All have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, that will pass. Now, the zoning map amendment request to rezone the property. Do I have a motion on this?
Motion to approve that.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, that will pass. Mr. Ross.
Gentlemen, y'all did a great job on your presentation. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Item 13, Police Fire Senior Center Inquiry Building Needs Assessment Presentation.
That's
Yes.
Somebody who's doing
Thank
something.
you. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, everyone. Tonight, we have Stuart Cooper Newell with us to present their study on the needs of the Police Department, Fire Administration, and Senior Center. Stuart Cooper Newell was hired to comprehensively study, present present and future departmental needs to include renovation and or expansion of existing facilities and new construction options, and provide how to best utilize the Inquirer Journal building. Their space needs assessment and recommendations were presented to General Services on June 15th, and the General Services Committee requests that that presentation be made here at regular council meeting. So now I'd like to introduce Jim Stewart and Jim Stumbo of Stuart Cooper Newell, and they'll take it over from here. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, we appreciate the opportunity to come tonight and share with you the
results of our study and the meetings with all of the staff that were involved in the study to begin with at the police department, the fire department, and with the recreation department and those involved in the senior center. We conducted that study, went through all the buildings, reviewed the status of each building, the condition. We actually made measured drawings of each one of those buildings so that we'd have something to be able to work from. Jim Stumbo, my partner, is going to explain the methodology that we used and the results of that methodology.
Thanks, Jim. I won't get into too much detail, but again, as we go through the presentation, we'll answer any questions that you have. Just for the sake of brevity, this is a graphic of how we do a study that we perform for the city. The first item you start over on the left, we met with the different departments to try to understand what their current situation was, where they were looking at going, what hiring they were thinking about doing, just the details of each department. And then we split the study really into two tracks. The top track is forecasting the building size, which is staffing analysis, room analysis, coming up with literally a list of every space that each of the department will need today and into the future. And then the bottom track, the bottom three you see there, is looking at the existing inventory of buildings, the Inquirer Journal being the one mentioned a moment ago, the existing structures and properties that might be available to meet the current and or the future needs of the different departments. And then lastly, you marry those two together in the last two items, which you take what you have available, you take what the needs are, and you project and come up with ideas of how to meet those needs. So the first track, as I mentioned, was looking at the actual departments and understanding what their needs are. I'm not going to try to go into the details of each of the department. Again, we'll answer any specific questions. But suffice to say, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the needs that we projected for each department. The senior center, roughly 20,000 square feet. The fire department administration, roughly 17,000 square feet. And the police department, roughly 41 to 42,000 square feet.
The next slide you'll see is the existing building of the senior center, which is a fairly small building and is well used. There's about 7,000 square feet there. The building is in pretty good condition and they have a lot of use. And every time we're there, it was pretty well packed. A lot of activities going on. The next is the fire and police department administration building. If you notice, this portion is the fire department staff administration area. That's about 3,600 square feet. Then the police department have the blue section, and it's about 8,700 square feet for a total of a little over 12,000 square feet. Now that's just up on the main top level. The underneath is all open, and they park vehicles and that sort of thing there. Extremely tight inside the building, not really what they need.
Yeah, if you compare those existing space allocated for each of those departments and the actual needs they have, you can tell that they're working in some very confined spaces.
Now, we went to the Inquirer Journal building, which you've purchased. We went through that entire building. Basically, the building is a pretty good structure. It's going to need a lot of care and renovation to turn it into a senior center, but it has been added to several times in the past. So some of the areas that you see right over here, those were added to at some point in time. This looked like it was the original building. And that building is a little over 18,500 square feet.
So where do we go from here then? And the question is how do we meet those needs with the facilities we have or the property we have? As Jim mentioned, our first thought is that the Inquirer Journal building is a very good match for the needs of the senior center. Now you'll see on this slide and the next few slides, I'm using the word phase 1, phase 2 throughout. and that might not be a perfect choice of words. When we first started coming up with these ideas, we were looking at a linear progression of work where you had a major project followed by a major project, and it all was a longer time frame. Since then, we have condensed it some. So, for example, phase 1 that we're showing here might be occurring simultaneously with phase 4. And I've got a schedule which we can show you here in just a minute. But as Jim mentioned, the Enquirer Journal building size-wise works very well for the senior center. And if you think of how that building is built, roughly half of the building is currently or was currently used as the new newsrooms, offices, similar type spaces, and then the other half would have been the press room, plating room, storage for the paper materials, etc. So we have, when we look at this, using what's currently the newsroom and the offices for mainly office type spaces, and then those taller spaces, for example, the event rooms, some of the woodworking, some of those more utilitarian spaces going over into the other side of the building, which was the was the print room and the plate rooms.
We might add that we tried to use it's a diagrammatic study, but we tried to use some of the same walls that were existing in the building, and you can see some light changes around inside there, and then there was a small addition we put on and a place for the woodworking shop to have a compressor room. And then that would give them a pretty large space for large events with folding partition in the middle. So that's basically our approach to that one.
So if we had done this, or if we do decide, or the city decides to do this as a long progression of projects, once the senior center renovation is complete and the senior center folks are moved out, we now have the existing senior center that is now empty. And that would be an excellent place to put the fire department administration temporarily while other portions of the project are accomplished. So what you see here is just a diagrammatic layout of what the senior center could be used for temporarily by the fire department to help meet their needs while the rest of the work's being completed. As you can see, this building is about 7,000 square feet, so they almost have 100% growth of space that they would have available in the short term.
Well, you're talking about the senior center now, go to the Enquirer building, and you're talking about the fire department moving in the seniors building temporarily.
Correct.
Okay. Why would we want to move them in? Why would we want to move them in temporarily and spend who knows how much money to renovate the building to fit them, and then load them up and move them out?
And that's a good question. And the original thought was we would do the senior center and then the police department later, so that we would have a several-year time frame there. And while that was happening, we wanted to alleviate some of the space needs for the fire department by temporarily moving them into the senior center while that couple-year period happened. It doesn't have to happen.
I know. If we did that, of course, you move them in temporarily, all the renovations, which are going to cost thousands of dollars, where you move them out to is either empty or the fire department or the police department going to take it over, which would be fine. You got thousands of dollars of renovation there. You're renovating 2 buildings for a temporary use.
That is correct.
And I can take that much money on renovate that, and do this building.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's why these are options. We don't necessarily have to do each one or do them
No,
at the same
I understand. I don't mean to be argumentative, and I'm not. I'm just saying, we could take that, and I'm not saying we don't need to move them to larger space. I'm not trying to get out of that. I'm just saying the amount it would cost to redo the old center down there and do the police department, we could take that money and do the building over here.
One thing you may want to consider as we say that, later on when we talk about once the police department has moved out of the existing police and fire department, and we renovate that entire building possibly for the fire department, if they are completely out of that building and therefore a contractor can take that whole building at one time and renovate it, then you will have savings there. You'll make up some of those savings if the fire department's already out and then they come back in. So that is something we would have to look at very closely.
Do you have a projected cost for renovating the senior center?
I'm sorry?
Projected cost?
projected cost for?
Or renovating the senior building?
Yes, I'll go over all the cost here in just a minute, once we finish looking at what the different phases are. So if we went this route, once the fire department has moved into the senior center, then the police department would have the whole facility there and currently, which would take very minor or no renovations. They could just use the existing spaces as they are until the new police department's built, which would be the next major project, which is actually building a new 40,000 square foot police department. What you see here is on the south side of West, I'm going to say Crowell? I can't remember which one it is. Crowell, thank you. On the southern side of Crowell Street is a existing property the city owns that the police department could fit on, but it'd be very tight. You can see we use that whole site.
It is right in front of the EJ building.
Correct. Other option would be to put it on the north side of that of the street, on a combined site, which could house a future fire station. And one of the items we did not look at, we weren't tasked to look at, is replacement of Fire Station 1. We know that's a goal of the city at some point, and it has been expressed that if possible, and that happens, we might want to look at doing Fire Station 1 and the fire administration in one building. So the size of the building you see on the north side of the street would encompass and is able to encompass both the station number 1 and the administration building.
Is that facing Charlotte Avenue you're talking about now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right here.
Right, I'm with you.
And then to see if they could both fit on the single side of the road, we did a scheme where, yes, they do fit. And with the needed police parking, that's probably going to be the better solution anyway, so we're not really struggling trying to fit everything on the smaller site. And then lastly, if we did decide to use the existing building for the fire department as opposed to building a new fire station number 1 and fire admin, we'd renovate both the upstairs and the downstairs of the existing facilities for the fire department. So the question is, and to address it very specifically, is what does this cost? And that's going to be very difficult probably to read up there. You should see me flip to my notes here. The top chart you'll see is a schedule of how this would or could occur, and the colors really don't show up very well on that slide. But the senior center and the police department, the new construction of a police department, are roughly 2-year projects. If we started today with design and then went straight into bidding and straight into construction, you're looking at 22 to 24 months of construction. If we decided to continue with the idea of renovating the existing police and fire department for the wholesale use by the fire department, later you could overlap the design portion of that while the construction's going on for the new police department, and then as soon as the police move, you could start the renovation of the existing building for the fire department, which would be another about a year project, year and a little bit. So if the whole project is condensed as tight as we could get it, you're looking at roughly 3 years, 3.5 years of work. And the cost for those, what we've done is taken construction costs from current projects that we have done and escalated those 5% per year, because right now we're seeing some significant cost increase because the economy is doing well. What that gives you is if we build both the police department and the senior center at the same time, you'd have about $16.7 million of construction for those two projects. If we chose to do some of the renovations in the meantime before we do the final work for the fire department, you'd have about $437,000 for it. And then
Renovate what building?
Excuse me?
The 437 renovate which building?
That would be a combination of renovating the senior center and then renovating the existing police and fire for only the police. And again, both of those could be cut down significantly, or as you mentioned, you might not do any of it. And that's been a conversation that we had with the facilities group. And then the last portion would be in 2020, which would be the renovation of the existing fire and police
for the fire only, which would be a little over $4 million. I know I've thrown a lot of information and a lot of numbers at you, but we'll be more than happy to, delve into the details or go over specific items. Yes, sir.
You talk about moving the fire department temporarily in the senior building, which I agree with. The senior building at the old Inquiry Journal, I agree with you. And what about moving Fire Station 1 out from below us and moving the fire administration eventually down there?
That would be a possibility. We have not looked at that because we're not tasked with, that. So I'm not sure how large the existing facility is downstairs and how that would be used, but that's certainly worth looking at.
But it's just going to cost an awful lot to renovate the old fire police area. To me, money might be better spent going a different route because that building's got some age on it. That's just a thought.
Well, I'd like to see police and fire out of that old building. And then we take that old building and sell it.
It makes a good downtown office space with parking underneath and everything.
If you built a new station number 1 combined with fire admin,
Go back a
and
slide.
this is an assumption of the size you'd need for the fire station number 1, you'd be somewhere around $7.6 million. That'd be a 10,000 or so square foot fire station. Might be a little bigger, might be a little smaller, just depending on what the actual needs are. And Chief, I don't know if y'all put a number to that.
What size is the building on Charlotte Avenue, Chief? Square footage, right off?
It's 14,000 with the community room.
Okay, with the, well, that's a good thing that we added the community room. That's done well.
But
Okay.
what's wrong with down below with the rooms there? Be a lot cheaper than building new. Talking about fire administration.
Wow. I'm sorry, I thought you talking here.
I'm just talking in general. I was trying
Oh,
to.
okay.
I thought I was asking you.
I thought
I'm sorry.
downstairs would make a lot better fire administration than the old fire police administration building, which you got down spending right at $5 million to renovate that.
And that's certainly an option we could look at. We have looked at that some in the past. We can certainly look at that and see. I don't have numbers as far as what the renovation cost would be downstairs.
I would be very surprised if you have 17,000 square
There's
feet
not.
available downstairs would be the challenge.
There's not that much.
You got 3,500 now, right?
But
You
you've
have
been-
3,500.
In the existing building, not sure what's downstairs here.
You ain't got more people than you had then.
But if you had 12, that would be 3 times larger than the present.
It would be, but it would be putting a Band-Aid on the long-term need too.
Well, let me ask you this question though. Monroe is not growing. So you got police headquarters at 41,000 feet. If Monroe is not growing residential wise, then why do you need that additional space? I still don't understand that.
The 41,000 square feet is based on very little growth, actually. It's based on the actual need of the department. And to kind of give you a comparison, we've designed a tremendous number of police departments, and we actually teach some classes on how to design. A rule of thumb that we see and that we use is you'll see about 350 to 450. I know that's a big range, but 350 to 450 square feet per full-time staff member in a police department.
We just approved over 300 houses tonight and food lines out here. We got another 2 or 3 subdivisions coming up, so I think we're growing pretty good. We ain't growing like 10,000 a day or nothing, but we just approved 300 some houses tonight.
But somewhere you gotta put a lid on what you spend. Well, that's the problem with the federal government now.
Well, that's just what I
$20
said
trillion
here.
in debt.
I don't want to remodel a building that costs $500,000 and move them out in 6 months or a year.
No, I don't either.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. But we just approved 300 something houses.
300 houses, I want to be honest with you, those 300 houses will not make the city any money unless they're at least 300.
I know that, but what I'm saying is, we are doing some growth. But that ain't, I'm trying, I don't mean to get away. Back to you guys.
As I told y'all in the committee meeting, you'll have seven different opinions. So, and that's why we asked you to come here to present, so that we have all the information and we're able to get together and make these decisions, so.
Well,
Yeah, we get good information.
kind of give you an idea, we put both of these together on one site because in doing the development, we have one that's under construction down in Sumter, South Carolina, community much like yours, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit smaller department, both of them. But we have a fire department headquarters with the administration and a police department headquarters on the same site. And they're both developed the same way, and they're under construction at the same time with the same contractor, with one superintendent and one project manager from the construction company.
That's good, isn't it? That's the way to go.
Yep.
But, and I'm not saying we don't need this, don't need that. I'm just saying, if we're gonna do it, we need to do it. We don't need to spend $500,000 getting ready to do it.
Right.
That's what I'm not for.
Right.
And then another $200,000 for a table and chairs that will have to come. That's where I'm at. I'm not against the project. I'm just getting to the way we're gonna move out and move in. That'd be like me gonna buy a house across town and rent it for 6 months and buy it. I mean, that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
Why I wanna rent it? If I'm gonna buy it, just buy it and move in it. That's where I'm at anyway.
Aren't y'all really though saying, first thing you're gonna do is move senior center over to the Inquiry Journal?
Not necessarily the first thing. I mean, there's some choices there that you will have to make as a council as to what to do.
To move them into that building, I know you got the money here somewhere. What does it cost to do that?
To do which?
To move the senior center out and renovate the Inquiry building over here to put the senior.
It's about $300,000. No, 282.
We can renovate that building.
You talking about the EJ building?
EJ building.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
That total cost
Came
is
down.
about
It's,
$4.3 million to do that building.
What do you, give me the figure?
Let me get
Yeah.
that might
Here's my phone. Yeah, to renovate the Inquirer Journal for the senior center is almost $5 million. 3.4.
$3.5 million.
Right.
All right, yeah, okay. Okay, $3.5 million.
Here's some copies of the
I'm just
presentation,
saying,
that'd be helpful.
Because I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again.
clear in there. Here you go.
I would not vote for the senior center to come first. The senior center is a great thing, but to spend $4 million on the senior center as priority one does not make sense to me. Priority one needs to be the construction of the new police department. And that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm going to stay.
And let me add, we aren't trying to set a priority with this. That's a decision the city will need to make. The order we came up was what would be the easiest way to do it, to do the shell game if we went the route we did. Not necessarily that the senior center is more or less important than the fire or the police department.
Gary, you just about got the way he's going to do that thing in an orderly manner. If you renovate the Inquiry Journal, then when the senior moves out, you move the fire department into a renovated or temporary. Then at that time, you start your police administration, because that's much of the bigger project.
Well, are you for moving the fire department into senior building, spend $500,000 to renovate it for them?
I'd rather do that than spend $5 million renovating the old police and fire. I just don't like that building.
No, I'm not for that. What I'm saying, if we move them temporarily, we're gonna move you temporarily over here, and we're gonna spend $500,000, and then after we get it renovated, in a month or 2 or 6 months or whatever, we're gonna move you to the next building. Now, we done spent $500,000 over here for something that won't work for the next people we're gonna put in there.
Well, you could be right there. I ain't arguing, I'm just throwing out ideas.
Oh, I know that, what I'm talking about. I'm just explaining to you where I'm at. I don't see any purpose in doing that.
I can't see spending $500,000 to temporarily relocate fire admin to the old senior center.
Yeah, what we're talking is 232,000.
I can't see spending 100.
So, and I
Well, that's
understand
something we gotta
that.
work out amongst ourselves.
Yeah. But you could build the police department without doing any other work. You could build that, and then as soon as the police move, you could renovate the fire department with the fire department in the building. That can be done. It'll cost more because now you have a phased project, but you can do that.
That probably is a greater need for the police department, I would think.
So,
I think the question here, not that you haven't done a great job at what you do, is obviously a little bit of a disagreement here on what we feel like are the priorities, one, and then the phasing situation as well. So, I don't know, we didn't really come together tonight, I don't think, to make a decision on this anyway. It's more a presentation on your part of what your findings have been for the last 6 months or more. And so that's really, where we are. But we would be remiss if we did not use your expertise in this project, or this planning, I should say.
Being that none of us are architects and we don't know what we're doing, that's what we hired these guys for. So that's what, we need to go by their recommendations. And so let's hear what their recommendations are, and then we can discuss it at a later time. But like I said, that's their business. That's what they know. That's not what we know. Okay.
I want to say, we can iron this out later.
Right. Let's just go ahead and hear the rest of the presentation.
Pardon us for interrupting
We'll
y'all.
be
Go
here
right
this time
ahead.
tomorrow.
We would have our field day up here, but go right ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, well, it's always a hard decision when you spend money.
And it's not a small amount of money, and we're very cognizant of that.
I'm conscious of it.
Any other questions?
Well, but just to confirm, and that you are a company that has done this in many communities, you just mentioned one, but I believe in previous meetings, in just say North and South Carolina, I think you told us you had done maybe as many as 30 of these?
Probably, just police departments, probably 20 to 30, fire departments, probably several hundred.
So as far as the concept of the size and the cost, I mean, give or take some dollars here, you feel comfortable that what you're recommending for a city of our size, our staff, et cetera, is what is needed?
Yes, sir.
Right. To properly meet their needs. You're also saying that what we have is sorely deficient at this moment.
Yes, sir.
So just want to make sure everybody understands where we are in this process. So, and the ultimate decision, and apparently we're going to get into it later, possibility would be that, planning some model to be able to pull this off financially in some way. Yeah. Okay, so I agree. I appreciate your work, and I don't question your.
I appreciate it too. When do we hear the financial part of next? Okay, good.
Right now. I don't see it. I'm trying to close it, but I don't have a mouse to close it. You see a mouse pointer? Can't find a mouse pointer. It's not just me.
Oh, there it is.
Ah, there, okay, you got it.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council. As we just heard from Stuart Cooper Newell, we have some proposals and some ideas for options for the police, fire, and senior center, and they also provided pricing estimates. Using those pricing estimates and the forecasted revenues and expenses for the city, David Cheatwood from First Tryon Advisors and Charlie Shoemaker, also from First Tryon Advisors, are going to present an interactive capital planning model to help make your decision and assess the borrowing capabilities of the city.
Thanks, Lisa. Mayor, Council, good evening. Thanks very much for having me here tonight. My colleague as well, Charlie Shoemaker. As Lisa said, our firm serves as financial advisor to the city. We've worked with the city on its prior bond issues, and we've also been doing some capital planning work as you all consider these larger capital needs that your architect just went through. On the capital planning side, our main role in the financial advisory capacity is to help you look at these projects and evaluate the financial impact that it may have on the city's financials. And so, as Lisa mentioned, we've got a capital planning model. It's a tool that we've developed in-house, and it's an Excel-based model where we can load up your projects, change amounts, change timing around, and then automatically see the impact that it has on your finances, whether that's a tax impact, whether it's your fund balance. And so it's a tool that you all have at your disposal. We've got some information in these couple slides. We've got the tool here. We've got the Excel model here if we wanted to go and pull up and run different scenarios. For those of you on the General Services Committee, we went through the model in a little bit more detail back in July, so you can see some of the background of that model, the different inputs that we have coming in. We're looking at your financials both historically and projected, looking at your fund balance, certain debt and financial ratios, and so we're tracking all that in addition to just running the different scenarios here. And so what I've got before you here, the way we start when we're doing our capital planning work, we start with just first off, just a list of your needs. And as Stuart Cooper Newell just went through, we've just summarized those needs they just went through, focusing on the three main projects. We've got those listed here, just the senior center, the new police department, and the new fire administration building. We're looking at the bigger needs. We're not looking at the potential renovation and kind of moving around. We're looking at the larger projects at this point in time. That said, we can layer in any sort of scenario you'd like to see on that. And so what we've got laid out here, and this is what you'll see in a couple slides when we look at a potential funding scenario, we are looking at this is a snapshot from their information, a total low and high cost estimate there, and then the highlighted in yellow on the far right portion is the adjusted cost to account for the inflation and soft costs and some of the things in there. And so those three main projects you can see tally up to about $26 million or so. Broken down between the $4.3 million for the senior center, $16.5 for the police department, and $5.4 for the fire administration building. Those are, again, the high side, include the inflation, include the soft cost estimates in there. So we always start with that. We want to get our arms around the projects. And again, our goal is not to provide, or our role is not to provide input on the projects themselves, but to take that information from the architect, take those cost estimates, the timing, gather your input on those as well, and then dump them into a financial planning model that you all can quickly and easily see what the impact is on the city's financials. So that's our starting point with your project needs. On your once we get that project list down, we then want to look at your different repayment sources. And so the two primary sources of revenue that you all have to pay for these projects are going to be your property tax revenue and then your fund balance, or your cash on hand. Your property tax revenue, that can come in a couple different forms. What I've noted here is you've got roll-off capacity, or what we call roll-off capacity. When we're looking at layering on new debt service, we always want to start with what your existing debt service structure is, because as you pay off debt, that naturally is going to generate some capacity to layer on new debt for projects. And so currently, and you see this in the table here on the right, and I think you've got this in front of you as well, your existing tax-supported debt service for fiscal 17 was about $1.4 million. It's about the same for fiscal 18. You can see how it declines slightly thereafter out through 2027. A little bit of relief in these first couple of years really doesn't start to pay down dramatically until you get into fiscal 25 and 26. But again, that's our starting point to see if we layered on new debt, do you have a cliff coming up where if you waited an extra year and did it, does that help alleviate some of the pressure? And so here we see we've got a little bit of this roll-off capacity coming, but not a ton. But again, that's our starting point. Of your total tax rate of about 58 cents, around 4.4 of that is allocated towards existing debt service, assuming it's all paid from property tax revenue. Our other starting point is, or another form the property tax revenue can come in is just a tax increase. If you all decide to increase taxes to help pay for some of those projects, obviously that's a new revenue source we can count on to pay the debt service related to it. When we're looking at tax increase, we look at what your value of 1 penny is, and so y'all are right around $330,000 when we look at your current value. We assume some growth rate going forward because as y'all, if you have growth in that, that's obviously going to be able to pay for an increase in debt service as well. And so we take into account your existing value of the penny, what your assumed growth rate is, and you can see right now we're just assuming a flat line 1% growth over time in your property tax value. And then we have assumed some collection percentage. We've got a high 99% collection percentage. We ultimately get to a collected value of 1 penny. And that's where you can see that 4.4 cents currently being allocated towards debt service. The other thing, so you've got roll-off capacity, you've got potential tax increase, a new revenue stream coming on, or a reallocation of your existing revenue. So if you look at that 58 cents that's currently being currently levied, can any of that be reallocated to pay debt service on these new projects? And so I think you all have taken that initial step to do that. It's my understanding for starting in fiscal 18, you've set aside a penny or close to a penny, about $300,000 a year, and would plan to set that aside within the confines of your existing tax rate to help service new debt in anticipation of these projects. And so you'll see in a minute, we've got that layered in as well. And so we're taking into account your roll-off capacity, we're taking into account some of this reallocation, and then what we're going to show you is you're still going to have to come up with some additional revenue to pay for some of these projects if you chose to go forward with one or all of them. So we've talked about the repayments, or that's one repayment source. The other is just cash on hand, your fund balance. And so we've just given you a table here on what your current fund balance levels are based on unaudited results from fiscal 17 and then going back a couple of years. We're tracking, as I mentioned at the outset, we're tracking your fund balance levels to make sure you're not dipping below your minimum target. And so your minimum fund balance requirement is 25% of the next subsequent year's expenditures. And so we've got that line item there, and then you have kind of what's above and beyond that minimum requirement, your unassigned fund balance. And you can see, again, based on unaudited numbers, about $2.7 million or so, and that's been at different levels over the past couple of years. That's a really strong level. That's a good level. Certainly provides you all flexibility to pay for some of the ongoing pay-as-you-go needs that you may have. Also pay debt service on some of the smaller projects you have, like the fire truck financings or a new fire station or things like that. So it's good to have some cushion there. And so you look at this and say, all right, I've got my minimum requirement, and then I have upwards of $3 million of unassigned fund balance. Clearly, that's not going to pay for all of these projects. But that's when we get to this Excel tool and the different things we're looking at here, that's something where if you had maybe a different amount in there, if you wanted to use some of that cash to pay for it and finance the rest, we can play around with those different scenarios. But those are your two main repayment sources that we see, again, your property tax revenue and your fund balance. So when we get into our scenarios here, and what we've got is a couple snapshots from our Excel model. We wanted to start with just one scenario, put it out for you, let you ask any questions on it, and then we've got the Excel tool if we wanted to pull that up and run any other scenarios to see if you didn't do the senior center, what would the impact be? If you lowered the amount, what would the impact be? So we got the ability to change that. It's an interactive model, as Lisa mentioned, and so we can see what the impact is live if we wanted to do that now, or if you had other scenarios you wanted us to run at a later date and come back to you and present that, we're happy to do that. But our starting point, our first scenario that we've run here, we are assuming that you fund all three of these projects. So you fund the approximately $26 million between the senior center, new police department, and your fire administration building. You can see the timing there. Again, this is a snapshot from our model. The timing, we are assuming you do the senior center and the police department as a part of one borrowing. We are assuming you finance all of this, the full $26 million, not using any of your that excess fund balance, which there's just a little bit above and beyond your minimum requirement. So we're assuming you fund the senior center and the new police department during fiscal year 19. You're obviously going to have a construction period after that. You need the money on the front end to do that. In order to borrow money in North Carolina, you've got to have a bid or bids in hand before the local government commission approves your financing. And so that's where, again, these are estimated timings. Once you figure out a plan to move forward, we'll look at that timing, and is it one borrowing, is it a separate borrowing? We can play around with that, but for now, we've assumed that you do one borrowing in fiscal 19 to fund your senior center and police department. In terms of a repayment schedule, the standard in North Carolina for projects like these is that you pay it on a level principal basis. as opposed to a mortgage style where you pay a level payment, a level principal basis. Your first payment's going to be your highest, and then it's going to go down thereafter. That's how your projects have been funded in the past, and that's how the local government commission likes to see it. So you'll see there under this column 6 structure, we've got level principal for each one of those. Again, highest impact's going to be in the first year. You also have flexibility in how long you can repay that debt. Again, reverting back to the local government commission's policies, for projects like these, they typically do not like you to repay it over a period longer than 20 years, but 20 years is certainly a reasonable time period to pay that. These are going to be long assets out there, and so we can go up to 20 years on that, so we've assumed 20 years. And then we're going to plug in an interest rate again for a starting point to see what the debt service is going to be, so we've assumed a 4% interest rate on that borrowing. We then assume on the police department, you fund that the next year in fiscal 2020, about $5.3 million, again on a level principal structure. I've skipped over one column here, the funding type. You'll see LOB, that's a limited obligation bond, similar to, it's the same thing as an installment financing that you've done many times. It's different than a general obligation bond where you are pledging the full faith and credit and taxing power of the city. With a limited obligation bond or installment financing, you're putting a deed of trust on the asset you're financing, and then the debt service is subject to appropriation by you all each and every year. And so that's the financing structure we've assumed. And so if you all do all this, again, the immediate question is what's the impact here? And so if you started again with all 3 projects under those assumptions, what is our impact? And so a lot of different columns and numbers here, but I'll take you through it and then tell you the punchline. Again, we start with our collected value, going back to one of our previous slides where we talked about our property taxes. Your collected value of a penny is about $330,000. We've assumed that grows by 1% per year. We then layer in under column 3 your existing tax-supported debt service to take into account any sort of roll-off capacity that you may have. Again, that starting point's about $1.4 million. And so we can see under column 5 the revenues you generate from the debt portion, the debt allocated portion of your tax rate. Under column 6, that is the aggregate amount of the debt service from the 3 borrowings we just went through on this page. And so if you borrow $26 million over 20 and 15-year term at 4% and 3.75%, the aggregate debt service is going to be under column 6. And so that's everything combined, and again, we can show you how that's split out between the different projects if you want to have that level of detail. But for now, we've got it aggregated under column 6. And so what we're looking at is new, or your existing debt service plus your new debt service. So column 3 plus 6, that's going to give you column 7, which is your total debt service. We then take into account some of that reallocation, that $300,000 or so that you'll have at your disposal from that you started in fiscal 18. We've assumed, again, under this timing scenario, you have $300,000 in 18 and 19 and 20, and so that's why you see $900,000 coming in 2020. You've got that over the next 3 years accumulating and then applying towards that first debt service payment. Again, you can layer that out over future years if you wanted to as well. And then we've got $300,000 a year for the next few years thereafter. We can extend that further, but really once you get past that point, some of your debt service starts to fall off, and so that may not be needed there. And so ultimately what we're looking at, the punchline is going to be column 9. What is the additional revenue we need above and beyond that $900,000 or $300,000? What's the additional revenue we need to pay the debt service on these new borrowings and keep you all in the same financial position that you're in today? And so that's what we're looking at with this model. And so if you do that, again, take into account your value of a penny, you can see the total tax increase required under column 11. You see 1.17 cents and 3.06 cents for a total of 4.23 cents. It's layered in because we have the different timing of the projects going in there. And so if we played around with that timing, we would you would see how that would shift. You can do all that in one fell swoop and just do a 4 cent, for instance, increase, and we can see how that plays out. But that is our initial starting point for illustration purposes to show you if you did it under this timing, this assumption, what's the impact going to be. And again, we've got the ability to run any other scenarios you want to, either now or later, as you think about those projects. Because again, our goal is to provide you with all the information you need to make an informed decision on which way you want to go with one or more of these projects.
Any questions? Council have any questions?
That was very informative.
I'm sorry?
I said that was informative.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Now, I got a question, Mayor, too. You guys said something about that you could build Fire Station 1 and Fire Administration for $7.5 million. Did I hear that?
Roughly, yes.
Then,
Assuming a 10,000 square foot fire station.
I guess my whole thing, I'm not in love with the present fire police, so if I was gonna, rather than spending right at $6 million to try to utilize that building, I'd probably try to sell it and go ahead and build a new fire administration and fire station.
How would the council feel, us setting a day aside or an afternoon aside, and we're gonna have to come together somewhere and discuss this?
Doesn't have to be here tonight, no, and I agree with that, and I would certainly make room on any calendar to meet that need.
Well, that's what I say, we're gonna have to come together at some point and sit down and talk about this thing, and see where we at.
But we need a meeting anyway. We
Do
haven't
what?
had one in a long time.
Well, we can do it sooner, we can do it over October, November, next month and a half. You wanna think about it, let's set a date later?
Why don't we get Bridget to get our availability and come up with some dates, and then she can let us know like she does on everything else.
Okay, if you will do that, Bridget, and then we'll see what day the council is good for the council, we can come together and talk about this thing. Any other questions, comment? Mr. Stewart, Mr. Jim, thank y'all for being here tonight, thank you for your presentation, it was very good and very informative,
Absolutely.
and we thank you very much. Item 14, capital plan and model presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Manager, Attorney, and Madam Clerk. My name is Teresa Campo, and I'm with the Planning and Development, Community Development Office. And I'm here to present to you the capital project budget ordinance regarding our Community Development Block Grant Urban County Agreement. The city agreed to partner with Union County to become an urban county back in July 22nd, 2015. And part of our agreement was to leverage out the environmental, in which we completed. We received our authorization to use grant funds in August, and now we are at the point of signing the subrecipient agreement. However, the project needs to be put into the correct categories, and we need the $5,000 transferred over for the capital budget project. So I'm here to ask council and to adopt an ordinance approving and entering into a subrecipient agreement with Union County and the allocation of funds in the project account for the reimbursable grant.
Okay,
If you
council,
have any
have a
questions.
question?
So this is something that we've worked with the county, is that what you're saying?
That's correct. This is a 3-year cycle, and this is just the first year. And even though we committed in 2015, we had to wait till the environmental was complete, and we did run that RFP. We issued it to an engineering firm, and we received the authority to use grant funds. And during the comment period, we didn't receive any environmental findings, so there was a finding of no significant impact, and we went forward to ask for the request to use the funds from HUD.
So, Majid, was I correct in thinking that we need to adopt the capital budget? Was that
Yes,
what
that's correct.
Is that what the motion should be then to
That's
adopt? I make
correct.
that motion that we adopt the capital budget.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it will pass. Everybody said yea. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did that get 14, the capital planning and the capital project?
Yeah.
I didn't get to, all right, how about the capital project?
No, that's what I,
That was
that's
what,
what I
that's what you
said.
guys approved.
That's what we
Well,
just
that's-
approved.
That was the model, that was David, and then this is
Yeah.
just what you.
That was the first trying thing.
I know where I'm going to 16, but I just wanted to make sure I was
Yeah.
right, 14 and 15.
Okay.
Now I'm moving to 16. All right, recommendation, appointment, reappointment to the commission. Who is that, Mr.
Yeah,
Gordon.
that would be me.
Letting us-
Mayor and city council, the Citizens Appointment Committee met on August 23rd, 2017, and recommends the following appointments. Monroe Historic District Commission, appoint Jennifer Smith to a regular member from an alternate member for a 3-year term. Well, actually, was that 3 years? 1/1/2017 would be the effective date, apparently since she was already an alternate past 12/31/2019. To appoint Bob Bullard to the vice chair to replace Brenda Lemons as the vice chair of the Monroe Historic District Commission. And to appoint to the planning board Richard Ali as a regular member for a full term to replace Dave Harbour. And to appoint Todd Price to a full term for the Public Safety Committee. And that's the recommendation of the Citizens Appointment Committee.
Any discussion?
I move we approve their request.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Item 17, staffing, fire and emergency response. Safer Grant Program, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm really very excited to tell you that we were notified this past Friday that the city has been approved for an award for a Safer Grant Award. Safer is an acronym for Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response. It's a federal grant. You may recall this grant we've applied for a number of times over the last few years. And back, if I can take you back just a little bit, back this past February, as we were working budget proposals, that type of thing, we had included 3 firefighter positions in the budget proposal. This would be to replace the 3 firefighters that were lost a few years ago because of budget reductions. And we also had the opportunity to apply for this Safer Grant for those same 3 positions. We did bring this to council on February the 7th of this year, and council did authorize staff to apply for that grant. So we did apply. As I said, we're notified Friday that we have been approved for an award. It is a 3-year grant period. It's for 3 firefighter positions, and the grant will pay for salary and benefits, base salary and benefits. For year 1 and year 2, it'll pay 75%. So 75% year 1, 75% year 2, and 35% year 3. So the total federal award would be $315,817. The city's required match over that 3-year period is approximately $196,319, plus any overtime or equipment costs, uniforms, those type of things that the grant does not pay for. Again, it is a 3-year period. The other thing is there can be no reduction in staffing during that 3-year period. So we would not be able to do any layoffs or any reduction in staff during that 3-year period. So at this time, we do have a 30-day window in which that we're asked to either accept or reject the award. That's the reason we're bringing it to you tonight. Received notification this past Friday, so that 30 days would end before the next council meeting, so we're bringing it to you this evening. So what staff is asking for this evening is authorization to formally accept the grant. Then we would bring back to council at a later point a budget amendment to actually accept the federal funds and allocate the funds, the city's match for the remainder of this year.
How many
First 2 years.
I'm sorry, how many
First 2
open,
first 2 years is 75.
Yes, sir.
The third year is 35%.
That's correct.
Okay, and this, if we approved it, when would this begin?
We can actually begin it right away. The period of performance is slated to start in February, but that is giving a time period to do recruitment. We actually have, we're in a process now, so we actually have applicants, so we'd be able to actually begin that right away.
Now, is this 3 firefighters for the 3 we approved, or 3 extra firefighters?
3 extra firefighters.
Well, that's what I understood. Yeah, okay.
Yes, this is 3.
My question is, how many open positions do you have currently, Chief?
We have 2 currently.
So you'll have two positions plus with this grant, that gives you 5.
Correct.
So you'll hire 5 from this pool?
5, that's correct.
Okay, I'll make a motion we approve.
You got.
I'll second that.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none?
Thank you very much. Perseverance pays off.
Thank you for writing those grants, Chief.
We have been turned down before, so it's nice to be accepted.
Exactly right.
Item 18 is public comment period. Is anyone here who would like to address the council? Public comment period. Hearing none, we'll close 19 and go to 19. We have a closed session for 19.
Who'd like the honor?
Yeah, who would like the honor to take closed session? Somebody.
Mayor, I move to go into closed session pursuant to the North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-38.
Hey Doug, you got your report ready?
.11,
Yeah.
A1 and A3 to prevent the
We're in
disclosure of
special session.
information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States and not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statute, to consult with the city's attorneys in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the city attorneys and the city council, and to consider and give instruction to the city attorneys concerning the handling of a claim, judicial action, mediation, arbitration, or administrative proceeding.
I have a motion, I need a second. Second. All in favor? Aye. We are going into closed, we are in closed session.
Tell Lucy that I think she knows.